Hello, this is Rob DeRusso, and I'm with Jason Como tonight, also known as Pastor J. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing?
Good. So we were going to talk about Christians, how they're being hateful, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. We were talking earlier about the hateful comments that people are directing towards Leonard Nimoy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a this and for anybody who sees this is kind of a continuation of a talk we were having before. And I wanted to say I think there's a difference between making light of a situation and actually going out and attacking, a certain person who happened to die. And we were talking before about, well, what did you want to say about the angry Christians? What?
Well, first of all, they're basically hypocrites. I mean, if they read their Bible, Jesus says, "Love your enemy and turn the other cheek." And when you go and post on Facebook that you wish somebody is in hell, that's not really Christ-like, and that's not really following the Bible, and that's not following the teachings of Jesus Christ.
Well, so this is what's funny to me, because whenever I hear this line of thinking about, this isn't how Christians should act, it's funny to me. And by the way, I'm no scholar and I'm not the smartest man in the world, but whenever I hear that, I can't help but think about how I don't think most Christians act the way a Christian should act. For example, uh, and as an atheist, I'm in no way, shape, and form defending the Catholic Church. But if you go back in history, the people that had it right were the Catholics, right? If Jesus starts allegedly doing his thing, if he existed at all, and he starts talking about how people should worship him. He dies allegedly, and then the Bible basically gets created after that, and then for 1500 years before the Protestant Reformation, the Catholics were pretty much the true Christians. And so to me, it's funny because either God messed up for 1500 years until he had Martin Luther raise some shit, or the Catholics were right for 1500 years before people decided they wanted to do things their own way. So, but either way, I mean, if you go back in time and you look at how Christians were and how Christians are now, it seems like the ones that still have it right are the Catholic Church. And again, I'm not saying that they're right. I'm not saying that they do a lot of fucked up shit. But it's a silly argument to me about, you know, I don't know.
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine today who I've been debating her for a very long time because she seems to think that religion isn't harmful. And I keep on giving her like examples after examples after examples how religion is harmful. And I actually screen captured the hateful picture that this person made about Leonard Nimoy. Oh my God, did my camera go off?
No, no, it's still on. You you,
Okay.
you, you
So,
lagged a little bit.
anyways, I screen captured the hateful thing about Leonard Nimoy, and I put it on I sent it to her. I was like, here's another example of Christians being hateful. Now, you're gonna probably think you're probably gonna think I'm foolish now, but I was talking to Jay, he's like part of Beyond Gods, and he's trying to tell me the guy that put that is like you. He's doing satire. But whether it's satire or not, I just don't appreciate stuff like that.
Well, speaking of satire, the one kind of thing that I live by lately, and I think this has a lot to do with the fact that I do satire, is I pretty much assume that everybody is doing satire nowadays, and it helps me. It helps curb my anger whenever I feel like even that Kristen Claire girl, the dinosaur girl. I still think she's a Poe or a troll. Um,
Whoa.
but we don't have to get into that. But to me, like she might not be. I'm just to me when I see her, I tell myself that because it helps me not get as angry, right? But going off of just going back to what you said when you started talking, you were talking about religion being harmful, and I might be jumping the gun here, but I agree with the idea that religion is harmful, but I also think there are different levels of it. There's a harm to other people, and then there's a harm to self.
Well,
Um,
I think it encompasses more than that. I think religion can be harmful as a whole. Like I think it's like because people kill over religion. People deny science over religion. I mean, it's anti-science. It's anti a lot of things. Like I mean, I've seen people like when I did my ex-girlfriend wanted to fast for like 3 months.
yeah.
And I told her that's extremely unhealthy not to eat for 3 months. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, why would you do that?
Well, then you like this is the other thing. Will debate me on this, but it's this idea that when you have that mindset, you're living a life of subservience. Of I'm not good enough. Jesus is always first. I'm always second. Without him, I can't do anything. And even if you don't have that mentality, you might live in a world where um, for example, and I'm not speaking for my mother here, but I assume that she's pretty upset that her only son, in her eyes, is going to hell when I die, and that's got to take a toll on her, and not just my mother, but other people and other parents who might be believers whose kids happen to be atheists, and so they live this world where they just still love their child. In some cases, they don't love their child anymore, um, but they still live in this world where they're not happy to an extent because they're aware of the fact that their atheist kid is going to go to hell, and so they're praying all the time. And I mean, sure, there might be some aspects of religion that is maybe you have a community, maybe I mean, there might be some aspects, but I think underneath it all, you still live this life where you're not good enough, and I think that's pretty harmful.
Right, and that's what Christianity teaches. It teaches us that we're not good enough. It teaches us that we're not that we're just that Jesus died for us to make us acceptable to Him. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize for being a human being. I mean, I have
Yeah.
we as human beings we have needs and stuff, and we can't like we cannot not be humans because that's who we are. And Christianity teaches us that we're less than human.
Well,
And
yeah. It's not just Christians either. I mean, one problem I have with the atheist community is we always, of course, we live in this country, and Christian is the dominant religion, so it's easy to pick on. But I feel that we fail to mention a lot of Islam, a lot of religions,
oh
right?
yeah, well,
It's
Islam is probably worse than Christianity by far.
well, it is in the sense that people are dying.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
I don't exactly see Christians getting violent when you make fun of their religion or make fun of Jesus. I
Not in this
see,
country.
oh, not in this country,
Yeah,
but
right.
there's this Muslim. I just recently heard about this. I think TJ did a video about this. There's this guy in Saudi Arabia who denounced his Muslim Islam religion, and now he's going to be executed.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have to deal with that here. I'm afraid, and this might be sort of an extremist attitude, but I'm afraid if and this is why the whole separation of church and state's huge, because I wouldn't call myself an extremist, but if I let my mind go too far, I always fear the idea of if we do have a country that's run by the Christian God, what's going to happen to the people that aren't Christian or whatever the religion decides to be? Whatever becomes a dominant religion. What happens to everybody else that doesn't believe? Are we going to be forced
So
to convert? Are we going to be, it's
so
kind of.
are you saying that the United States is headed towards a theocracy?
I'm not saying that. That's why I said my extremist mind.
Yeah.
Like that's the worst. Well, I can't say that's the worst it can get, but
Well, there is some truth to that because
yeah.
if you look at people like Ted Cruz and Sarah Palin, if they had it their way, they would push the theocracy as a form of government.
If they had their way, but I'm sure that there are a lot of checks and balances in the way that would prevent them from making it that way. I think. I mean, I think that might be a reason why we haven't been there yet. Is
Well,
because
I feel like if I ever met Sarah Palin, I would quote First Timothy 2:12 to her: "Keep your mouth shut, woman." You
yeah,
know?
but like with a lot of A lot of Christians, they would look at you as if you're taking the Bible out of context. It's
That's it. 1 Timothy 2:12 says that a woman is not to
oh, I know,
teach a man at all on the Bible or religion.
but they'll twist that into saying that that only applies within a church, not overall. See, there's ways around pretty much any Bible verse that you can quote at a Christian, they're gonna turn it around. I mean, as Pastor Jay, I'm sure I could have a nice fake debate with you, and it's still
Right.
not really win, but still win in my own head
Well,
because it's a matter of moving goalposts.
Maybe we should do a collaboration. Maybe we could collaborate on something.
Well, I could try. I mean, the whole Pastor Jay thing, it's usually a lot of that's. I don't know how I would do I think I could do well in a debate. I know Joey Kirkman wants me to do like a
Who?
fake debate. Joey Lee Kirkman, he wrote the Bedtime Bible Stories.
I don't know who that is.
He check out the book. It's called Bedtime Bible Stories, explicit.
Oh,
Rick.
wait a second.
Yeah.
Yes, I do see that on my wall a lot. I actually
Yeah.
like a lot of those. I think I just recently saw one about Psalms 14:1 where it says, "A fool says in his heart there is no God."
Right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that. I actually enjoy those.
Yeah. Check. I did a book review as Pastor Jay. Me and Rachel did a book review video, and we tear up the book and everything. So, but yeah, going back to this Leonard Nimoy and how a lot of religious extremists can tend to. It's easy to be a little more extreme when you're behind Facebook, when you're attacking a celebrity, somebody you don't know, right? Like, it's very. I have yet, and I'm sure this has happened, but I have yet to see a situation where somebody's atheist parent dies and swarms of Christians come in and start making fun of that person, right? I feel that in this world that we live in today, it's easy to attack from behind a computer screen. It's easy to
Yeah,
make a statement.
it's called the big man who's a bully, keyboard bully. I mean, I see it all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, and so the thing, and this happens. I mean, you mentioned before the Robin Williams and people attacking these atheist celebrities, and now they're in hell. And I don't know why they do it. I don't, you'd think that they wouldn't
know
say
what?
anything.
This is something, now, mark my words, and I think this is going to happen. I'm going to make a prediction right now. The Westboro Baptist Church is going to picket Leonard Nimoy's funeral. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. It's going to happen. Watch.
They would picket my dogs and my cats if they could, if
Well,
they have
I
the
don't
time
know. I
to.
mean, they only really go after, like, fallen servicemen, and they only go after people that are, like, influential, like, very
Oh,
influential.
yeah, I mean, they go after everyone that's not them, but they usually try to go after the more public figures. But
Yeah, but when I see stuff like this, it kind of like it seems to me like it's a Westboro Baptist Church mentality, you know?
yeah. Well, what sucks about them too is and this goes back to your question of, why do these Christians do this? Don't they know that that they're going against the Bible by saying all this mean stuff, right? What was the verse that you quoted to me?
Well, I don't know the verse, but I think Jesus said that, love thy enemy. Like,
Right. Well, the problem is with a lot of these different sects of Christianity and oftentimes individuals is that they tend, like a lot of people, they tend to ignore certain verses and they take on this mentality of my church is the right church, and if you're not part of my church, you're doomed. And Westboro Baptist Church takes it a step further to where not only are you doomed because you're not part of the church, you're not even allowed to be part of the church. In their mind, they're the only ones going to heaven, at least as far as I know. It's the last time I remember watching a documentary about them, but
hey, we have a viewer.
nice.
Hello, viewer.
But I think for me, and that's the thing is you have so many different sects of Christianity that it's very hard to, when you see people acting like dicks about Leonard Nimoy or Robin Williams, I hate saying this, but it's almost like you can't blame all Christians because there are so many different types of Christians. There's a Christian that Rachel and I know who's probably one of the coolest. I hate labeling it like this, but one of the coolest Christians I know because, she's down to earth and she kind of understands both sides. She still holds on to her beliefs, which is fine. but she's not extremist like that, you know. And
Right,
then
and I'm very well aware that not every Christian's like that, but
right,
it's kind of like what Thunderfoot said about the Islam moderates. Okay, so what if somebody's a moderate? Islam is still a violent religion. It's still a problem. It
yeah,
doesn't negate the fact that just because you're less extreme than the Fundy, doesn't mean that your religion's not part of the problem.
yeah, no, that's a good point.
You know?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I didn't think
It's
about
it's
that.
like what Bill Maher said in Religious List. If the moderates, they're like the mafia boss's wives, and mafia boss's wife, they're still enabling it.
Right,
And when you enable bad behavior, you're just as much as fault for it.
right. You know, there's a for you and anybody that happens to watch this, I stumbled upon this is kind of on topic but kind of off topic. I stumbled upon this website called dumbshitthebiblesays.com.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very well laid out, very simple, not too much to it, but like you click on it and it just says what was the one I found? Give me one second. I might not find it. But anyways, oh yeah. This is the one. If two men, a man and his countrymen are struggling together, and the wife of one comes near to deliver her husband from the hand of the one who is striking him, and puts her hand and seizes his genitals, then you shall cut off her hand, you shall not show pity. Like that, it's silly to me. Like it's as with most Old Testament verses are.
That's in the
Um,
Bible.
that's in the Bible. Yeah, it's
I never read
Deuteronomy.
that verse before. Is
It's
that like
Deuteronomy. It's Deuteronomy 25:11 through 12, and basically what it's saying is if you're fighting with your friend and your wife comes in and tries to stop you and somehow she happens to touch his genitals, then you have to cut off her hand.
okay? First of all, why would somebody's wife touch another guy's genitals especially in front of the husband? That's like a little weird.
Especially when she's trying to break up the fight.
Right. I mean, that's kind of just escalating things, you know?
Right, and so what's funny though is we as atheists read these Bible verses and we look at that and go, "What the fuck?" And we look
Right.
at,
Well,
and,
I have
and
to confess, I haven't fully read the Bible.
that's fine. I mean, you know what? I don't think reading I mean, I think it's good to read the entire Bible. It doesn't make you a better atheist or a better Christian, but I think it helps to I think it helps both sides. I don't think any Christian should have an excuse as to why they haven't read their guidebook to life, and I don't think any atheist, as I can't tell you what to do, but I'd keep reading it.
Well, you know
Um,
what? I have genuinely tried reading it, and I have tried, but let me tell you something. It's fucking boring. It's
yeah,
dry. It's boring. I
yeah,
can't get into it. Like, I really tried. I got up to like the Tower of Babel, and after that, I just got bored. It's like this is fucking stupid, you know?
right, right. Well, what's funny? Here's a couple things I'm gonna go on a rabbit trail here, so I apologize, but this kind of relates to like true Christians and how Christianity is today. I always, whenever I quote the Old Testament or whenever I point out a funny book or a funny verse rather, I'll oftentimes hear a Christian say, "Well, we don't follow the Old Testament anymore." But it's
Yeah, and didn't Jesus negate that? Didn't Jesus say that not one iota of my Father's law shall go unchanged? I'm
right,
pretty sure that's a verse in the New Testament.
but there's also a verse that says he came to change the law, so there's like a little mix up there. But it's funny to me because what was I gonna say? You interrupted me and I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
I'm just fucking with you. Oh yeah, well, they'll say things like that, but yet they still hold to this idea of Genesis, both accounts of the creation story. They still follow the Ten Commandments. They still talk about all these stories that took place in the Old Testament, yet they whenever you point out any flaws in the Old Testament, they push it off. They look where God says that after they eat of the fruit they'll surely die. Well, that was metaphorical, but yet they look at Jesus' death as literal. Like who determines what's metaphorical and what's literal anymore, right? You have all these issues that crop up. There was something else I was going to say about that. I have a lot on my mind right now, so but that's one of the things that I run into. when I talk to these quote unquote true Christians, you know.
Well, you know what I tell Christians when they said the Old Testament doesn't count? I was like, okay, then fine. If you're not going to count the Old Testament, then let's throw out creation and let's throw out the Ten Commandments. And they're like,
Right.
oh, no, 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 no. I was like, well,
Yeah.
you cannot have it both ways. You cannot say that. You cannot say we need to get rid of the Old Testament, but still keep those tenets that are in the Old Testament.
Well,
You know,
unfortunately, they
it
have a.
comes down to cherry picking. That's exactly what it is. It's cherry
Oh
picking.
yeah. Well, you know, and what sucks is they have this fictional character that comes in and says, "Oh, some of it doesn't count anymore." You know, I like the idea in that video that I just made, talking about Armageddon. You know, with these when these true Christians talk about how when the rapture happens, all the Christians, all the saved people are going to go to heaven with God, right? But what about the Jews, God's chosen people? Why are they left here on this planet, right? It's silly to me that Christians have taken on this. We're better than everybody because, you know, we were guilted into this person dying for us, and now we're the better people. And so when God comes back, fuck the Jews. It's the Christians that are going to go to heaven. But the Jews will have a chance in the rapture. They're going to be all out in the wilderness, and God will protect them from all the bad shit that's going to happen.
I think
What?
it was like late last year. I want to say December, probably like the end of December, early January. The History Channel had this thing called Revelations: End of Days. I don't know if you saw it. It was like a two-part miniseries.
I probably went out of my way to avoid it. I went through 20 years of that shit.
I know, but you know what? I actually took the time to watch it. It was actually pretty entertaining. Like I'm not saying I believe it, but some of these special effects in that movie were pretty damn good.
Oh yeah, and you know what's intriguing to me too, and this also kind of can apply to the concept of hell, of the image of hell that we have, is I think, and I'm sure someone will correct me on this, but I think the idea of hell and the idea of what's going to happen in the end times, which I don't think it's going to happen, but I think a lot of that's new. Those are new ideas. I don't think, like when you read through Revelations, it really doesn't talk a lot about the things that end time people talk about. They talk about the seven-headed dragon and these locusts that have human heads in the Bible, in the Revelations, but they don't really go into a lot of the stuff like the Left Behind series talks about, or these end times. People have read these verses and have kind of made they've applied they've applied modern times to that book, and they've made it what they wanted it. Same thing with hell. You don't really hear a lot about hell in the Bible, but yet we have this guy. His name is Bill Weiss. In fact, I put him in the background on one of the songs that I wrote. This guy is going around the country preaching how God sent him to hell, and so he goes around these churches talking about how bad hell is because God sent him there so he can preach to people, and he's basically quoting Dante's Inferno.
Right.
It's I don't know.
Um, what I find funny was I don't know too much about what you were talking about earlier. I did like actually your video attracted me because we did do a Beyond Gods episode about about the end of the world and the end times and the rapture. And I'm kind of fuzzy on the Gog Magog war you were talking about. What exactly
Yeah,
is that?
it's basically this battle that's going to happen. I had a bunch of I deleted a lot of my bookmarks here, but give me 1 second. Let me just give you a synopsis of it. It's this battle that's supposed to happen like right after. I think everyone's supposed to attack Israel. In Ezekiel's prophecy, Gog will be the leader of the great army that attacks the land of Israel. Gog is described as of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, and blah blah blah. Ezekiel's battle of Gog and Magog occurs in the tribulation period, more specifically the first 3.5 years. And again, basically, I think it's supposed to they're supposed to be attacking Israel, and Israel basically, repels the attack. Which is another thing that's funny to me. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's
Well,
supposed
all
to.
right. Well, I can always Google it if I'm still unclear on that. You know.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for being so vague on it.
No, it's fine. I mean, we're not exactly biblical experts here, you know.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make a funny video, but that's essentially what it is. Like after the tribulation period, everybody. I'm not sure what its purpose is, but I just know in the video that I made, a lot of people think Russia is going to take a bunch of other countries to attack Israel, and Israel's basically going to repel the attacks to kind of solidify the fact that Israel is God's chosen nation, which it boggles my mind. This biblical idea that Israel is this amazing piece of desert land that might not have been a desert back in the day, but you talk to any religious person, and like I've heard of people not voting for certain political leaders, or voting for certain political leaders based on if they like Israel or not. You know, if they're Christian, they
Oh
must.
yeah, I've noticed a lot. My ex-girlfriend's kind of guilty of this, but a lot of people vote based on their faith. Like take George W. Bush for example. A lot of people voted for George W. Bush because he's a Christian man. He that's a really stupid way to vote, because you shouldn't be voting on somebody's religious beliefs. You should be voting on the issues and their stance on the issues, and how and how they're gonna handle something if they do get elected president.
Well, especially since we live in a country where, in order to get voted to the next highest tier, all you have to do is basically say that you agree with the majority of the party. I could be an atheist, and if I was running for office, and I was quiet about my atheism, I could say I'm whatever Christian you want me to be, just to get votes,
Right.
which is sad. So, I mean, I have no problem with an atheist running the country, obviously, but it's
That's
just
the
it's
case
just
for president.
what's up? Yeah,
That's
right,
the case
right.
for president.
But it's sad to me. But that's the thing, though, is it's really, you have to be really careful when it comes to these conversations with generalizing everybody. You know,
Right.
that's why whenever I have these talks, I always stress that, look, I don't know everything about everything. I could be wrong about everything, and I'm okay with that. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'll correct it. Like, there's no problem with that. But going back to the original reason why we have this video, Leonard Nimoy, and Christians that are assholes that want to either rub it in our faces that an atheist is in hell now, or
Well, it's like I said earlier prior to us going live. It's like you can look at Zelda Williams. It's like her father just had died, and he just died, and she was getting hateful tweets from all these fundamental religious people, like Christians, like fundamental Christians saying that your dad's burning in hell. He was a blasphemer. He was a mocker and a scoffer at God and Jesus. And it's like,
yeah,
I mean, the poor girl just lost her father, and she got so upset she had to withdraw herself from the social network back then. I mean,
yeah.
obviously she's back now, but I feel like I should even just write Zelda like a tweet and like, I'm really
Yeah.
sorry about your father. Your father was amazing. He was a funny man. You know?
I don't understand the mindset behind that. Like I said, the Christians that I know, that I'm friends with, I know even if they think that way, they're not going to be public about that. They wouldn't be assholes like that. And it's childish too. I remember even as a Christian, I remember when Christopher Hitchens died. I remember looking at a Facebook post, and I remember seeing, through the grapevine, or hearing through the grapevine, how God had his revenge on Christopher Hitchens because what he had, throat cancer or something like that. Yeah, he
No,
had something.
I'm not, honestly, I really wasn't around when he died. I didn't
Okay.
know who the guy was until like 2 years ago. So I didn't know who he was until I became an atheist. I heard
Right.
other atheists talking about him. I'm
Yeah.
not 100% familiar with him. I've seen him talk before, and I know he comes across as a militant atheist, which I'm fine with.
Right.
But right, I don't know exactly how. I thought he died of a heart attack. That's what somebody told me.
He had I'm pretty sure he had some kind of cancer. I'm sure someone will
Okay,
let us
well, we
know,
got
but
conflicting sources here because I heard a heart attack.
well, no, he was dying. He actually wrote a book while he was dying. I think it was like, fuck, I can't remember the name of the book, but he was literally writing a book about his experience of dying. And I've read the book, and I don't remember the name of it. It's like Hitch 21 or something. But either way, he was dying. But the thing is, the whole point of this is, you had all these people talk about how God is having his vengeance on Christopher Hitchens for being an outspoken atheist. And it's so funny to me because nobody says a word. I mean, people obviously were speaking out against Hitchens, but all these, crazies weren't really coming out and saying anything until he got cancer. Then they're like, look, see, God had his, God's finally like getting Christopher Hitchens for speaking out. And I'm thinking, either God really like was like you, where he didn't know who Christopher Hitchens was for the last 20 years before God killed him, or there is no God. Christopher said a lot. Now, a lot of atheists say a lot, and not every atheist dies right away or dies for, I bet you if I get throat cancer, people are going to say it's because he did those Pastor J videos and God's having his vengeance. And
Yeah.
watch it happen 30 years from now. And
Yeah.
it's going to seem silly.
It seems funny because even before I was an atheist, even if, like when I remember when I was a kid, I really was kind of resistant to religion,
Yeah.
and I'm the type of person I don't really like people telling me what to do. I have a problem with authority. Let's just put it that
Oh
way.
yeah.
And I remember when I was a kid, my mother like woke me up one Sunday morning and she said to me, "You have school today." I'm like, "Today's Sunday. How do I have school?" And she's like, "Well, you're not going to regular school. You're going to a school to learn about God." And I was like 6, 7 years old back then,
Yeah.
and I was kind of like pissed about that because like it's my day off from school. Why should I have to go to school? And going through life, because my mother tried raising me Catholic. Going through life, I was very resistant towards religion. I was very, not into it. And years later, to make it 2012, I met a born again Christian woman who was, very Christian. And believe me, I tried Christianity. I really did try. I went to church with her. Um, but I felt like I was faking it because even when I was in church, I wasn't enthusiastic about it like she was, and her friends were enthusiastic about it. And and we ended up breaking up, and I uh, I decided, one night I went over to a friend's house and he asked me if I believe in God or not, and I said, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm on the fence. And he told me about how, he kind of joked with me. He's kind of making fun of me. He's like, "Oh, you believe in a talking snake?" And I was like, I don't know what to believe. And he told me, you should read the Bible, you should talk to other atheists, and he recommended the movie Religious List to me with Bill Maher. And I actually downloaded it. It was on my old computer. I had another laptop. I downloaded Religious List, and I actually watched it. And after watching it, I was like, wow, this guy makes some really good points. And after talking to other atheists, I was like, I'm an atheist. There's no reason for me to believe this stuff anymore.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it was different for me. I was 20 years a Christian. Of course, I had my ups and downs as far as how passionate I was. But over that time, I knew all the arguments, as many as I could. I went to a boys' home for a year. I studied the Bible. I studied Bible verses, and then the last 2 years before I became an atheist, I was a Catholic. I learned a lot about Catholicism, which is why I love having debates with Christians when they strawman the Catholicism. And I have no love for Catholicism. Don't get me wrong, but I have less love for people that argue a point but get their argument wrong. And so I oftentimes will correct people on what Catholicism is before I debate them, which is funny. Well, I want to say debate, but anyway, yeah, it was different for me, but I did get to that point after a while. I was listening to a conspiracy radio show, Coast to Coast, and Bart Ehrman was on there, and that's when he basically like ruined the Bible for me, because when you study the historicity of the Bible, a lot, religion kind of crumbles after you come to the conclusion that the Bible isn't all that it's hyped up to be. But yeah, I got to the point a couple years ago too where I was like, yeah, I'm an atheist. There's no way. I mean, I can't accept any of this stuff. And I love it when people are like, well, there's some good things in the Bible. Well, yeah, there's good things in a lot of books, but it doesn't make it any true. And when people say when people talk about, well, Jesus said good things about this, it doesn't mean that any of it's real. There's a lot of fictional characters that also said really good things. There are also a lot of religion. If you look at Jainism, I think that's more pure than Christianity is.
What is it?
It's called Jainism.
I never heard of that before.
I'm still kind of when I say I'm so new to it, it doesn't mean I'm following it. It just means when I'm studying religions, I'm looking at different religions as far as wondering what they're about. I'm still
Oh,
kind of new.
that's
But
definitely a new one on me.
yeah, but when you look at when you compare the religions and you look at I'm kind of a fan of comparative religions. One of my friends, Jeremy, he's really good at that stuff. I think
You talking about Jeremy Stevens?
yeah. You
Yeah,
talked to
he's
him.
actually part of my podcast now.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, he told me about that. Yeah,
Yeah, and
congrats.
he's like, I asked him if he wanted to be a permanent member. He's like, well, I gotta ask Pastor Jay, and he goes,
Oh,
I don't step on any toes, and he got back to me the next day. He's like, yeah, he goes,
oh yeah.
he's like, you didn't even, why did you even ask? I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I don't like for what I do with the Pastor J stuff. I don't take it that seriously. So the people that help me out, like they are amazing people, every single one of them. But they're not obligated. I don't make them sign a
Well, I just
contract,
think
and
he has respect for you.
yeah, I have a lot of respect for him. Everyone that I work with, it's much love and much respect, man.
Well, he's going to be on tomorrow night with me on Beyond Gods.
Nice.
This is going to be his first top podcast as an official member.
He's got a way of not just being very detailed, but also making it make sense. Because there's been a lot of times that I've come to him and asked him questions, especially in comparative religion, and old religions, and he's good. I'm glad he's part of your show now. So
Yeah, well, I've had to struggle with different lineup changes because when we first started Beyond Gods last year, we started July 5th was our first episode, and it was originally, well, it still is me. It was me. Do you know somebody named God is Meme? Does it ring a bell?
Goddess, what is it
No,
again?
God is Meme. Does it ring a bell?
Oh no, it doesn't ring a bell. Nope.
Because I looked at your profile and he's a mutual friend. Well, his real name's Eric. Does it ring a bell at all?
Eric, what?
I don't know his last name, but he calls himself God is Meme.
Maybe. I mean, I have like I have over 1,000 friends
Well,
now.
anyhow, it was me. It was me. God is Meme, which is Eric. It was Brandon Toner, who's another friend of mine, whose life has gotten so hectic he hasn't been able to commit to Beyond Gods. And then there's this other girl named Jamie, who was expecting twins, and she was part of the show.
Yeah.
And what happened was we did our Noah's Ark episode, which was the fourth episode, episode 4, and we like the week after we were supposed to do episode 5, and John Gleason was supposed to be on the show too because I had just made John Gleason a member of Beyond Gods. He's no longer a member, by the way, but I'll get to that. And he messages me. He's like, "Hey Rob, I don't think I can do the podcast tonight because I'm having internet problems." I'm like, "Okay, fine. I'll see if I can get a replacement for you." And then Eric messages me. He's like, "Hey Rob, I'm having internet problems." I'm like, "What the hell's going on here?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna have to cancel this podcast now because now I have 2 people that are dropping out." And honestly, dude, I don't know where he is. I have not heard from him since August of last year.
Yeah.
And, I remember, talking to him, and he's like, well, I've been really focused on this skateboard shop and working with, skateboards and stuff. And I said to him, okay, well, are you still going to do the show? And he's like, yeah. But, I don't think, and this is just my opinion, I'm just speculating here, I don't think he had the heart to tell me he didn't want to be a part of it anymore. That's what I think. And,
Yeah.
And that kind of upsets me because all he had to do is say, hey, Rob, I can't do this anymore. Because when we first started, I approached him about it, and he's like, oh, yeah. He was like looking enthusiastic about it. And now now it's like he's avoiding me for like almost a year now.
Well, whatever you do, man, don't ever hold anything. Don't hold it against anybody. Whatever the reason.
And that's why
there are guys that have written scripts for me before that I haven't heard from in months, but I don't. It's fine. Like I mean, of course, it might be different with you because you have a live show, and what I do, I don't take it seriously, But everyone's got their thing.
Right, but here's the thing. I don't take it personally, but because I've replaced people. Like I have literally replaced people. Like and then after Eric left, John came on, and it was me, Eric, Brandon, and Jerry says, and then after that, John left, and then I brought in then I brought this guy named Jay Bryson, who's actually still my friend, and he's still officially a member of Beyond Gods, but he has computer issues. He needs a new computer, so he's kind of like not able to do it right now. But bringing Jeremy in, I really hope that I can keep a steady lineup. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because this is important to me. I want to spread atheism, and I want to educate people, and I want to make people understand that this is bullshit.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I would be careful with using the word bullshit, even though most of us agree with you. I think, when it comes to spreading it, especially if you want Christians to hear it, they hear that word and they're instantly on the defensive.
You know what? Can I just be honest with you about something? And
yeah.
Dusty Smith influences me a lot. Dusty Smith is like, I'm like a huge fan of Dusty Smith, and I agree with Dusty Smith. Mockery is the best way to deal with these people. I mean, it seems like the only thing that they actually understand is mockery, and I'm not trying to convince them. I'm not going to convince them anymore. I've already tried it. It doesn't work. And it seems like mockery is the only thing they really understand. And you know what? If that's what I have to resort to make fun of their religion and poke fun of the religion, so be it. I mean, even Dusty said, we will mock your religion into existence, and you're too afraid to admit that you believe that stuff anymore.
And I can't really talk because I do make satire videos.
Well, I know, but I really gravitate towards people that are outspoken. Like, I'm an outspoken person. I tend to gravitate towards people that are outspoken.
Well, and that's I've mentioned this before. That's the beauty of being part of this movement is there are all kinds. There are people like you that will actually go out and say your religion is bullshit, and there are people like me that won't go as far as to say it's bullshit, but I'll mock it in different ways. And then there are other podcasts out there who are really good, who will talk about religion in a more diplomatic way, the conversations. And I think for me, when I do my videos are separate from who I am as a person. So if I were to actually sit down with a Christian, I'm going to be a little more diplomatic because I like the conversation versus.
And I like conversations too, but my mother has always told me, Rob, you really have no filter, and I don't have a filter. I really don't. Yeah. And believe me, I really try being diplomatic with people. That's my approach. But the way I handle my podcast and the way I operate on my podcast is I'm going to expose religion for what it is. It's
right.
Why, and it's harmful.
Yep.
Now, when I'm one-on-one with a Christian, I will tell a Christian why I don't believe what I believe and give them reasons why I don't believe what I believe. And I will try to be nice about it. But the minute you tell me I'm going to go to hell,
right.
tell me that I'm a sinner, that's when the claws come out,
Which is why I think, and which I'm having a hard time talking. This kind of led into this video chat today with talking about Leonard Nimoy. You had your claws came out. You were pissed because you had certain people, certain Christians that were coming out and saying that he was in hell. That whatever else they were saying, that's going to make anybody go on the defensive. So I understand, man.
Right, and once again, I'm not trying to disrespect Leonard Nimoy. I mean, I never really was a Star Trek fan. It just never really interested me. I'm more of a Robin Williams fan than I am a Leonard Nimoy fan. I think the guy's a good man. I think he was a nice guy. I'm not really a fan, but I respect the guy, and I respect his accomplishments. I mean, it's like music. All right, for example, and please don't hate me for this. I really don't care for Aerosmith. Aerosmith to me...
I don't hate you for that at all.
Okay, well, Aerosmith is not a band I'm, heavily into.
Right, I agree.
But you know what? I never bought an album. I have seen them in concert though, and the reason why I see them in concert is because they were opening up for they were playing one of my favorite bands. I went to see Motley Crue, and in 2006, and they were playing with Motley Crue, and Motley Crue, headlined with them, and that's the only reason why I even saw Aerosmith in concert. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like some of their music. I like Walk This Way, Love in an Elevator, and I know they're from New England. I totally acknowledge that. But I'm just not really heavily into them. But I do respect them as musicians. And it's like Leonard Nimoy. I can respect Leonard Nimoy as a good actor, a
Yeah,
person who made an impact on pop culture, and still not be a Star Trek fan.
yeah.
Now, if George Lucas died, I'd be a little more heartbroken because I'm a Star Wars fan.
You know, it's funny. Like, and I've talked to Rachel about this before. I, I don't. I have a hard time understanding this. Um, how do I say this? I'm not saying you're like this, but I've always had a hard time with celebrities as far as they're no different to me. Like if Tom Cruise walked by me, well, I mean, that's a bad example, but it wouldn't affect me any different than if somebody else walked by me, except for the fact that I would recognize that as being Tom Cruise. Um, Horrible example, but for me, like when a celebrity dies, to me they're just somebody that's more recognizable than somebody that I don't know that died. And so I've always had a hard time understanding people being upset. And so for me, like my the thing that I did today on Facebook after he died is I was more upset by the fact that my entire news feed on Facebook was filled up by, oh my God, Leonard Nimoy died, which is to be expected because that's just the way Facebook works. So I wasn't mad. I was just kind of like, oh God. So what I did was I posted my Facebook profile right now was Zachary Quinto, the news Spock, and I wrote something cheesy. Um, and some people found it funny. I'm sure some people thought it was kind of a douche move on that part. But that's as far as I'll go as far as being disrespectful, if anything. What you're talking about, that like we've covered earlier, the people that will actually say that this individual is in hell. And when somebody approaches any kind of subject like that, it's gonna piss a lot of people off, and it's gonna make people like you, who might have a good conversation with a Christian, go into rage mode. You know?
But I don't hold against all of them because,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
I said earlier, not every Christian is like that.
right.
And here's the thing, okay? I'll tell you somebody else who I really admired that was a celebrity that I thought made a really big impact on the world is George Carlin.
Yeah,
I remember listening to George Carlin's comedy routines when I was a kid, when I was just a little boy. Me and my brother, we would laugh hysterically over George Carlin. And here's the thing, I remember when George Carlin died, I was very upset because I'm like a huge fan of George Carlin. He's like my favorite comedian. He will always be my favorite comedian. And I remember, Fred Phelps from the Westboro Baptist Church. He made this really hateful video about George Carlin being in hell, and I was really offended by that because George Carlin was amazing, and I wish he was still alive today because the guy was friggin' amazing. He was funny. He was hysterical. You couldn't help but to laugh at George Carlin.
right.
And I get really upset when people who make this huge impact on the world get disrespected like that.
Well, let me ask you this: is it when you get upset? Is it almost like where it distracts you? Like you're so angry that you're just overall pissed off and you're just in rage mode?
No, I don't go that far. I get to the point where I get to the point where I'm like, this is bullshit. How can people act like this? Like, that's how I was tonight. I wasn't like overly mad about it
Yeah.
because, once again, not disrespecting Leonard Nimoy, I just really am not that big of a Star Trek fan. Actually, I'm not
Right,
even a
right.
Star Trek fan. But what upsets me the most is even though I'm not a fan of Star Trek, I just don't think it's right for anybody to say somebody's in hell. I mean, it's just a hateful thing to say.
But this is okay. So this is my question then. I guess the first question is, will this ever change?
No, I don't think it will.
So, and and this is where I have a hard time understanding, being upset and angry. And I'm not saying you're wrong for it. I'm just trying to understand better, like why, like I expect that. I expect Christians to act like that, to resort to childish antics like that. Um, Maybe because I'm kind of a child myself, and I do silly things too. But whenever I see that, or any actor die who's not a Christian, I expect that. And so for me, when I see it, I just shake my head. I might poke fun at those people, but I rarely ever get angry. And
Well,
go ahead.
it did ruin my night. I'm like
Oh
not
no,
like
no,
super
I'm not.
pissed about it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I know it didn't ruin your night, but I'm just I guess I'm just trying to understand like the difference between like how I react versus like.
You know what it boils down to? I care about people, and I
Okay.
care about how people feel, and I care whether or not somebody's being disrespected. Look, I'll give you an example of a celebrity I just cannot stand. I cannot stand Gilbert Godfrey. He's fucking annoying. I can't stand the guy. But if Gilbert Godfrey was to die, I'd be upset, and I'd be upset if people were saying he's in hell. I mean, because even though I find Gilbert Godfrey annoying, and I'm not crazy about the guy. He's a human being, and and every human being has feelings and should be respected.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't wish anything bad on Gilbert Godfrey. I just find the guy annoying. I think his
Right.
voice is annoying. I don't like him because
Right.
he's annoying. But I don't hate the guy. I don't wish any bad thing on him. I just not a fan of him. I just really don't like him. And
Yeah.
there's a striking difference between Gilbert Godfrey and George Carlin. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
polar
Yeah.
opposites to me.
Okay. Yeah. It's funny for me because, like I said, I sometimes joke with people that I'm close with that I for something or somewhere along the lines of my life I and I hate saying it like this, but it's like I don't care about a lot of things anymore. And so that's why like whenever we've talked a few times, and a lot of times when we talk, a lot of it's just me trying not and I'm not coming at this like, oh, you're being stupid or not, and I'm not even talking about just you, just people in general. I always try to understand people, and I always try to understand like, okay, what's the issue? Why is somebody reacting? Why am I not reacting a certain way to this? If you and I are if you and I have the same ideas and the same mentality as as far as it being an atheist and stuff, why do I not react this way? So I guess that's why I keep asking these silly questions.
Well, you know what? I mean, I'm not really am I an atheist, but I'm also a humanist.
Yeah.
I believe in, respecting my fellow human being, how fellow humans, fellow
Well,
man. I respect, and I just get really upset when people
yeah.
are
Let,
hateful. I
let
mean,
me let me back up too. I don't mean that I don't care in that I'm lethargic about it. I mean, for crying out loud.
I know what you mean. I don't think
Yeah.
less of you. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because
I admire you a lot. If you want to know the truth.
oh, thanks. Now I'm all blushing. No, just kidding. But no, I mean I don't care in this sense. I guess what I meant by that, and maybe I shouldn't use that word I don't care because I do things differently. I think I just route my anger differently, and I make jokes out of things. And I think when I say I don't care, I do care about things. I care enough to make 80 plus Pastor J videos and to mock every aspect of religion that I can. Um, I just think something in my life changed where I stopped being I stopped reacting one way and I just started acting another way.
I think a lot of my anger comes from the fact that it's coming out of a religious person's mouth, and
Yeah.
my goal is if you're going to say something hateful and stupid, I'm going to make you look bad. And I've already done it. I did it a week ago where this guy named Zach, I don't know if you saw the video, but there was this guy named Zach who I personally know who commented on a post I did about evolution on my wall, and he's a Christian. And he proceeded to come onto my wall, which I didn't ask him to.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying you can't comment on my wall, but if you're gonna comment, you're gonna get a response from me. And if you don't like the response, I'm sorry. But he tried to tell me that evolution is just a theory and that
Right.
it's never been proven. And I told him we were wrong. I explained to him what a scientific theory is. I told him the difference between a theory and a scientific theory. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I get this message from him saying, "Hey, I don't like talking to you. I really can't stand you. Blah 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 blah." And I was about to respond, and as I'm trying to respond to this guy, he fucking blocks me, and I'm like, "Really, dude?" And I like I immediately was like, you know what, I want to do a video response to this, and I did this video response called "The Cowardly Theist," and that was actually the name of the video, and it's gotten like over 100 hits already. I know
Yeah.
that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it's like he found out about it and he was pissed at me. I was like, dude, I was first of all, you are a coward because when you run from an argument, that makes you a coward.
You know, one thing, well, actually, there's two things that do rile me up when it comes to these debates, right? Like, I don't really care for the argument of the validity of the Bible or Jesus, or, but when it comes to evolution, when I hear those straw men, like, oh, it's just a theory, that kind of bothers me. And misogyny is a huge thing for me. I don't like it. In fact, I barely even. I'll make comments in my videos, but I try not to too much because I really
Well,
respect. I respect.
I really like Rachel, and she's a
Yeah.
wonderful girl, and you're very lucky.
Oh
But
yeah.
I found it a little humorous when you were in your Pastor J mode when I was watching the video and she opened the door, she wanted you to watch something with her, and you're like, get out, woman.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I kind of snickered at that, but I knew it was all an act. I knew
Oh
she
yeah.
would take it personally, you know.
Same thing with my old roommate. I mean, we all like they both knew me very well, and they knew that the way I look at women, the way I treat human beings. I don't care what your race is. I don't care we're all the same, and that's I really stick by that. So whenever I hear somebody who says racist things or misogynistic stuff, it's tough for me. But the one thing that the way I've kind of learned to, for me to maybe approach a debate without any anger, so to speak, is I approach it like this, right? I eat a lot of weird things. Sometimes I eat eggs and I put mustard in a dish as well as
That
ketchup.
is weird.
Right, right. But the thing is to me, and this is going to be the worst analogy in the world, by the way, but to me, when I eat my eggs with mustard and ketchup, that is the correct way to eat eggs to me. Now, this is different from an evolution, discussion, but whenever somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, the way you're eating those eggs, that's wrong. That's gross." I don't pay any attention to that because I don't give a shit what they say because they're not the ones eating the
Well,
eggs.
who are they to judge you? You do
Right.
what you built, man. That's what I say, you
Right.
know.
Now I know the analogy is different from evolution versus creationism because there's a lot of evidence for there's more evidence for evolution. There's none for creationism, right? So I know the analogy is different, but the way my mental process works is the same. So I believe that evolution is real. I'm living with a paleontologist, with someone who loves science, someone who loves evolution, and we talk about it all the time. So whenever I hear these debates about creationism, I treat those people as if they're the ones going, "You're not eating those eggs right. That's gross." Where I'm just like, "What? It doesn't matter to me." Like I'll have discussions with people who really want to learn, but anybody who comes up to me that says, "Oh, that's just a theory," I I want to talk to them, but I leave that stuff up to people that are more patient with me because I
And,
treat
and,
them
and
like
you
they're
and you know what? If he was just civil about the conversation, I would have had a like even a hangout conversation like we're
yeah.
having right now, and I would explain it to him. And in the video, I don't know if you've seen the video, but I did really try educating him. Like I was telling him the difference between a theory and a scientific theory. And when you come at me and tell me evolution's not real and it's just a theory as in a wild guess, that tells me right there you don't understand what evolution is. And
Well,
I will always say to a theist, for just to see where they're coming from, I'll say, okay, what is evolution? Give me like a basic definition of evolution, and they'll be like, well, it's just a theory, it's a wild guess, or they'll tell me like they won't be able to give me a definition for it, and that just tells me they don't understand it. And I wouldn't even made that video if he just didn't act like an asshole to me. Like if he didn't like act like an asshole, and if he didn't like block me on Facebook, and actually wasn't a dick by saying he can't stand me, we could have had just a civil conversation about it.
right.
And if he could just look at the research and look at the evidence and look at my definitions of a scientific theory, everything would have been fine. But I can't stand people, and I learned this as an atheist because I've only been an atheist for 3 years now, and I learned one thing talking to other atheists is that when you run from an argument, that means you have no argument, and that makes you a coward when
Yeah.
you run away from an argument.
Well, here's the thing. I agree with everything you said. But I don't think that they look at it as running away from an argument, and this is why. And I don't know where I got this mantra. I don't know if I got it from somebody or if I made it up. So I'm not going to make claim to it. But in the world of magic and make pretend, anything is possible, right? And so I love that quote, because when you live in this world where Satan exists and dinosaur borns aren't real because Satan planted them there, if I was a Christian still and you started telling me that evolution was real, in my brain you're just being talked to, like Satan's talking through you to try to deceive me, right? Nothing you say is going to make any sense if I'm that adamant that I'm right, because the devil's real. You're deceived by Satan. Bones were obviously planted by the devil, because if God could create the universe, how come Satan can't create bones? Like, and so in my mind, I'm going to sit there and say something to you, and as you start talking, I'm not going to want to listen to you for a number of reasons. One of them is because I don't want to listen to Satan talk to me, because I really think that you're Satan. Or two, you're just going to say a lot of things that aren't going to be true anyway, and I just don't want to deal with that. And I don't want to have to go to church on Sunday with this ickiness on my body that you've talked to me. And so I think a lot of that has to do with that's the mind frame of a lot of these people. That's how it was for me, and I admit that I was an extremist. I was the most extreme right-winged like Christian that you can imagine. So I understand this mentality, this conspiracy theorist mentality that some Christians can have. I don't know if this guy was like that, but it seems that way.
Well, and then like one of the I don't know if you've seen the video, but like I basically took a lot of things that he said on the Facebook and I screen captured them. And one thing he said was, well, he says, well, when you go to school, they teach you that it's just a theory, as in a wild guess. And I said, look, I don't think a teacher would tell their student in science class that evolution is just a wild guess.
Right.
No science teacher in their right mind would do that. I'm sorry, I don't believe that for a second. And the place where I go and play Magic the Gathering, I the same place this kid goes to. I asked one of the owners, who's a teacher, is like, hey Jeff, when you guys teach about evolution, do you say that it's just a theory as in a wild guess, or do you explain to them that it's a scientific theory, it's based on scientific fact, it has scientific evidence to back it up? And he's like, no, we don't tell our students it's just a guess. That's not what a scientific theory is. A scientific theory is a well-substantiated claim of something that's real in the naturalistic world.
So you're saying that are you trying to, okay, because I kind of missed some of that and I apologize, but are you saying that they think that scientists are just saying that just to make shit up?
No, what I think the problem is they think that the word theory, they conflate the word theory with guess, with wild guess. It's just a wild guess. It's one person's idea that cannot be proven, and that's not what a scientific theory is.
But see, as a Christian, whenever I would hear that argument that theory was different, I always looked at that as a cop-out, as, oh, science is trying to change the definitions now. I know that's not true, but that's how I saw it. So whenever as a Christian, and I got into these like arguments with people, I would look at that and go, oh, science is trying to change definitions again. Look at all these people run by Satan. It's a big global conspiracy to fool us all. And I was bad, man.
But you know what? Common sense would tell people that words can have more than one meaning. Like, for example, take the word...
common sense applied to people that think that mystical being created the universe?
I'm not even just talking about religious people. Like, I'm just saying that anybody who's semi-educated or can be educated, it's common sense that words have more than one meaning to them. Like, if you take the word sex could mean, two people getting together having intercourse. Sex can also mean male or female. So the words can have more than one meaning to them. So if you take the word theory, it could have two meanings. You could have the word wild guess or well-substantiated claim. But unfortunately, when you type in scientific theory into a Google search box, it's going to come up with the actual definition of a scientific theory.
Right.
And that's where I think a lot of people get muddled, is where they think that theory just means a wild guess. I mean, gravity is a theory.
Right.
And I always tell Christians all the time, gravity is a theory. Do you care to test it?
Right.
Gravity is a theory.
Yeah, it's easy. See the roadblock that I run into, and I think what helps me not have that puzzled look on my face all the time is as somebody who was a Christian for so long, who was on that side, I know where they're coming from for the most part, and a lot of them do really believe the things that they do, and they have a reason why they don't believe what atheists or what scientists say. And so for me, like, to a lot of people that don't know where they're coming from, they're kind of like, what the fuck? Um, Hold on one second. Yeah, a lot of people are like, a lot of atheists who might not have been Christians or may not know the arguments, look at these Christians like in this crazy puzzle, like in this puzzle way. I don't know if I'm even saying that right. Because they don't understand. Fuck, it sounds like I'm defending Christians. I'm totally not, but
I don't think that at all.
yeah, it just, as a Christian, I can see why Christians think the way they do and why and where they're coming from. And so for me, I tend to be more empathetic to why they think that way versus annoyed. I might still get annoyed, right? I still get kind of like, what the fuck, man? Like, I can change. Why can't you? But I also get to a point where I'm like, well, I see why they think that way. I see why they think that all scientists are the devil, because they live in the same world that believes that there's $1 billion industry that's create or $1 billion-man industry that's creating chemtrails that are, controlling us from the sky. And
But you know what I think the biggest roadblock is with religious people? I think the reason why they don't want to accept this stuff is because they have this fear of hell. Like, I used to be afraid of hell. Like, I remember when I was afraid of hell.
give me one
And,
second. Give me 1 second, okay?
yeah,
I have to give Rachel her purse because she doesn't want to come in
okay.
here. When she's
Nice
all,
tattoos.
oh, thanks, yeah,
I have 9 of them myself. But anyhow,
nice.
um, people have this fear of hell. If I remember when I was with my ex-girlfriend, I had a fear of hell. I had a fear of hell when I was a kid. I had a fear of hell when I was a teenager because that's kind of like all I was threatened with. And
Yeah,
I think a lot of times these Christians they don't want to accept science and factual information because if they do and they go against God and they go against what they believe in their mind they're going to go to hell. And I'm sorry, but I'm so glad I got that monkey off my back because I wouldn't want to go through life fearing stuff like that. It's really an irrational fear. And when you let that fear take control of you, when you start saying not believing in reality and believing in things that are real and factual, you kind of become a slave to that belief.
yeah. Well, I think my biggest hang up too with that religious mindset is, I feel like a God shouldn't have to guilt trip his creation into believing in him, and a God also should provide enough evidence to make people believe in him. Like, I would never tell you, hey, I could breathe underwater, and if you don't believe me, I'm gonna punch you right in your fucking face, right? You should be able to ask. You should be able to say, well, can you though? Can you really breathe underwater? And I should go, yeah, check this out, and then I do it, and now you're convinced. And unfortunately, that's not happening. But yet, we're told to believe in something by something that we don't know if it exists or not, and then we're threatened with hell for not just blindly following or believing, and then not even knowing if we're following the right way. And that just it's intriguing to me how
Right.
is.
And you know what? I really hope there's no kids watching this because it's like Santa Claus. We go through life thinking, thinking there's a Santa Claus. And why do we think there's a Santa Claus? Because our parents tell us there's a Santa Claus. Our parents tell us this. And, usually adults have a lot of influence on children. Children are very impressionable. But a lot of times, I believed in Santa Claus until I was like 11 years old. And
Yeah.
I remember the reason why I stopped believing in Santa Claus is because I caught my mother putting. I snuck up at one night, and I was like 11 years old. So I woke up one morning and I snuck up and saw my parents putting gifts under the tree, and I said to my mom and dad, is like, wow, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, I thought Santa Claus puts gifts under the tree. And my parents are like, oh, geez, he caught us. And, I said, okay, you know what? I don't believe this anymore. I don't believe this is Santa Claus. And my parents are like, okay, Robbie. Well, back then they called me Robbie. And they're like, okay, Robbie, don't tell your brother. Because my brother was 4 years younger than me. My brother was like 7.
No,
And
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have no problem with Santa Claus. I have no, because I told my daughter the same thing. But why do we have to lie to our children? Like, why do we have to lie and make things up? Why can't we teach
Yeah.
children reality and get them to teach reality? And this is why, and I was talking about this earlier with a friend of mine. This is why our public schools fail, is because we're not teaching children the way they should be taught. We're not teaching children factual information. Like when you try to push create.
Well, it's not just that. It's we're not teaching children how to be critical thinkers more
Right,
than.
exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, that's what I was trying to say.
I know.
I just couldn't word it right.
Mhm.
But I mean, you look at the state of Texas. They teach creationism in school as an alternative to evolution. And why do we need to poison our children's minds with crap like that?
Well, that's an easy answer. Is because they think that's the right way. So they
No.
want these. No, we know it's not, but that's what they think, and that's
And, and,
why.
and they're being selfish because they do basing it on their religious views. They want their kids
Are
to
we?
believe what they believe.
But then you have to, try to play the devil's advocate. Are we being selfish because we're trying to not teach them that stuff because that's what we don't believe, or that's what you know what I mean? Like,
No, I don't think we're
so
being selfish because it's factual information that
okay,
should be taught to a child.
yeah. I'm just playing the devil's advocate. I just wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, but I'm just saying I don't. I'm hesitant. As much as I disagree with them, I'm hesitant to say that they're being selfish more than I am. Well, no, I'll stop it right there. I'm just hesitant to say that they're being selfish. I think that they actually believe what they believe, and that they're pushing this stuff. We don't think it's right because there's no evidence to back it up. But I don't think what they're doing is like for some devious reason. I think they really think what they're doing is the right thing. But I wanted to go back to the Santa Claus thing. Do you think you would have believed in Santa just a little bit longer if you had the fear of an eternal hellfire if you stopped believing in him?
No, because when you're told there's a Santa Claus, there's no ramifications or consequences for not believing in Santa
Right.
Claus.
But if you were told that, do you think you would have believed in him just a little bit longer?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I guess I would. I mean, I remember my parents told me that that Santa doesn't like naughty children, and if I
Yeah.
did that, I'd get coal in my stocking. It's kind of like the parallel to hell. It's like
Well, yeah.
if you don't believe, then you can't be saved. If you cannot be saved, you're going straight to hell.
Well, I was just trying to ask, like, why would it be easier to not believe in one thing versus another thing? That's all I was trying to get at. It was kind of more of a thought experiment, but
Right, but I think there's more. I think if you're a Christian, there's more to lose. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to invoke Pascal's wager here, but I think there's more to lose for not believing in God. In their view, there's more for them to lose for not believing in God. And
which is yeah,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to invoke Pascal's wager because I think it's an overdone argument,
yeah.
but that I can't tell you how many times I've heard religious people say to me, "Well, what if you're wrong? Like what if you don't believe in God, and then when you die you find out there is a God and he punishes you?" And I'm sorry, but Pascal's wager is not proof of God. It's a weak argument that has no merit on evidence whatsoever.
This is the last thing I want to say because I have to get off the line here. But the one
Hmm.
thing I will say to the what if you're wrong argument, I genuinely believe, I gen there's a lot of reasons for this, but I genuinely believe that if there is a God and I die and I have to face him, I don't think he's that God. I don't think he has more. I don't think God is more emotional than I am. I also don't think that there's any universe I could live in where I would stop a rape and God wouldn't, right? So I have a feeling that if I were to die and I did see a God, it wouldn't be the Christian God. Um, and I also don't think this God would be so emo enough to want to burn me forever and ever. I can't buy it. I cannot buy. I'm not a deist. I'm not. I'm an atheist. But if there was a God, I can't see that God being a Christian God. not
Right.
the way. Because if you analyze that God from the beginning of the Bible to the end, and you see that there's two verses that talk about how God never changes, yet He changes throughout the entire Bible. That He sends Himself down as Himself to kill Himself, to guilt trip us all into believing in Him, just to send us to hell anyway because we don't believe. That's a pretty emo God to me. That's the God that listens to emo music and puts on black makeup. And no offense to people that do that, because I was that kid
So
once too. But
basically God is a crow. Okay.
yeah, yeah, it's just it's silly to me that that if I were to believe, again, I don't, because there's no evidence that leads me to believe in any God. But it cannot be that God. That's just my I have to head out, man. But it was good talking to you. I hope
Yeah,
I made
definitely.
I hope I made sense. I'm sure I said a lot of things that weren't correct, and I apologize to
No,
anybody
it's great.
listening.
This is a kind of like off the cuff conversation. This wasn't something that I was planning, but I'm glad we were to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And I know this is on my profile, people, but it's going to be uploaded onto Beyond Gods. So this is Rob saying, have a blasphemous night.
Have a good night.